When you think of Tom Landry, you think of one of the greatest coaches of all time. He won 2 Super Bowls as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, made it to 5 Super Bowls, and from 1966 to 85, had 20 consecutive winning seasons. Tom Landry is, in every essence of the word, a legend. And he was also a very fine player too, playing 6 seasons in the NFL, recording 32 interceptions, leading the league in pick sixes in 1951, and leading the league in punting yardage twice. He was even named a first-team All-Pro and a Pro Bowler during the 1954 season with the New York Giants. But I guarantee you that when you think of Tom Landry, you don't think of Tom Landry as a quarterback. And why would you? That wasn't his natural position. However, he threw 1 touchdown pass in his career. The story behind the pass itself is incredible. And the touchdown itself is, I kid you not, one of the craziest touchdowns you are ever going to see in your life. This is the story behind Tom Landry's first and only career touchdown pass. First, we need a bit of context to understand how a guy who primarily was a cornerback and a punter wound up playing quarterback. The year is 1952, and it's the Sunday after Thanksgiving. The Giants are traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. To say that this is a big game for the Giants is an understatement. Back in 1952, the only way to play postseason football was to win your conference. In the American Conference, there were 3 teams fighting for 1 spot. The Browns, Giants, and Eagles were all sitting at 6-3 atop the conference. And now the Giants were taking on a Pittsburgh team that was 3-6 and had allowed the most points in the conference up until that point. On paper, the Giants should be able to win this one. Instead, the game was a disaster. Not a lot of people showed up. Only 15,140 people were at Forbes Field, which makes sense, seeing as the game was all but meaningless for Pittsburgh, and the weather was not good. But it's probably for the best that not a lot of people saw this massacre that unfolded, because the Steelers destroyed the Giants 63-7. We'll get into the context of the game in a bit, but here are some stats about just how historic of a loss this was. Entering the game, the Steelers' offense was in the bottom half of football in points scored, with 199. The team leading the league was the Detroit Lions with 258. When the game ended, the Steelers had leapfrogged the Lions in points scored. It was the worst loss in Giants history and the biggest victory in Steelers history. And in the previous 4 meetings against the Giants, the Steelers had scored 45 total points, including a shutout in their last game in 1951. But this was an absolute rout. We're not here to talk about the 63 points though. We're here to talk about the 7. The Giants started Charlie Connerly at quarterback like they had all season. But after going 4 for 7 to start the game off, he injured his shoulder. That meant that the backup quarterback was now in the game. That backup was Fred Benners, who was chosen in the 8th round in 1951. He was not good. In 4 previous appearances, he had no touchdowns and 2 interceptions while completing only 43% of his passes. And yes, that number was as bad back then as it is today. If he was an eligible quarterback with those numbers, he would have finished last in the league in completion percentage in 1952. This backup appearance would turn out to be the last appearance of Benner's career, as he went 3 for 7 with no touchdowns, 3 picks, and a passer rating of 17.3. I bring this up a lot, but if you did nothing but spike the ball into the ground on every single play, your passer rating would be more than double than what Benner's was during this game. And to make matters worse, he tore a ligament in his left leg. The starting quarterback is out. The backup quarterback is out. Because rosters back then were significantly smaller, you didn't see teams carry more than 2 quarterbacks. The Giants needed an emergency quarterback to fill in. They couldn't just pound the rock and run the ball for 2 reasons. Number 1, time was not on their side. They trailed 7-0 after the opening kickoff and were down 28-0 at the half. And number 2, Pittsburgh stuffed the run all game. By the time it was over, the Giants had 20 carries for just 15 yards. So they called on Tom Landry to act as not just the cornerback and not just the punter, but as the team's quarterback. Obviously, seeing as Landry had never thrown a pass before in the NFL, and seeing as he wasn't a quarterback, he did poorly. He finished the game 4 for 25, completing just 16% of his passes. In fact, this was a historically bad performance. Pro Football Reference is a player game finder dating all the way back to 1950. And in 70 years of data, amongst all quarterbacks to throw at least 25 passes in a game, nobody has had a completion percentage that bad. He also threw 4 interceptions. The Giants had 9 turnovers across the entire game. But he did throw 1 touchdown. In his first ever game at quarterback, he threw a touchdown pass. And folks, this is the moment you've been waiting for. Behold one of the craziest plays you're ever gonna see.
The New Yorkers revert to form on this play with a wild display of firehorse football. It's Tom Landry on the tossing end of a pass to Bill Stribling, who goes down but bounces up quickly. When the Steelers hem him in, Stribling laterals to Joe Scott, who, when collared, laterals back to Stribling, and the lanky end streaks goalward. Spilled in the 5, but scrambles up and dives across to put the Giants on the scoreboard, but on the short end of a 35-7 count at the end of the 3rd period.
Okay, you probably have a few questions after this play. First off, tackling rules were different back in 1952 than they are today. You had to have the player in your grasp for him to be ruled down. If, in the words of Chumbawamba, they got knocked down but got back up again, they were not down. I made a whole video about that, and I'm looking at making a sequel soon if you want to check that out in the upper right corner. And secondly, yes, this counts as a passing touchdown, even though there were 2 laterals on the play. This is an absolutely beautiful and bizarre moment in football history. A defensive back is thrown into the game as a quarterback because the top 2 options get hurt. He throws this absolutely insane touchdown pass that is almost incomprehensible by today's rules and standards. And it's the only points that the Giants score in an otherwise humiliating 63-7 loss that all but ends their season, as they finish 7-5 and miss the postseason. That's the craziness of 1950s football for you. Be sure to check out Twitch every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping with the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.